Mahe and I favor nothing, miss nothing, breaking nothing, absent from your lives that are needed. Y'all know who this is. It's Raven. Before I introduce my guest, which you guys will all know, and by the way, all of you who listen to us, I really do appreciate it. Our conversations are a little esoteric for most people. So guess who's
just a
with
little.
me? Ah,
Hey, everybody! How you doing, brother? It's always good to hear your voice, man.
oh, folks,
I just love conversating with you.
dude, folks, we have been talking for an hour, but we do the hello and how are you for you all so that you know that we're not, fighting and throwing shit at each other while we're talking.
Yeah, I doubt it would ever come to that. We know too much.
Might be throwing cigars back and forth. I don't like this one here. Let me try that one. But anyway,
There you go.
um, phew, this one's strong. Here, you like straw? Here, give me that one. Man, somebody put cream in this coffee. Yuck. Anyway, folks, we're starting out laughing. We've been laughing the whole time. Now, first thing I want to do before we get into our conversation is I got a couple of things to tell you. The first one is whatever podcast you listen to me on, you just type in Raven Kiefer Laugh Podcast, and that is my comedy. There's like 240 hours of my improvised comedy out there, and I have dropped like 8 in the last few weeks, and I've got recordings going all the way out through the end of December. So, and it's everything from PG-13 to, oh my God, I can't believe Raven actually said that out loud, adult content. And the reason why I do it is because we need to laugh. There's PG-13, the stunt kids. You'll see it, and the stuff that says explicit, it's explicit, and you'll hear the countdown at the beginning of it. It says just plain ornery for a reason. Anyway, so that being said, there's a lot of comedy out there. Highly recommend Laugh Number 25. People really enjoy that. If you want to know how crazy I was in my younger days, I did Rodeo Days and the Horror of Being in Rocky Horror Picture Show. That being said, I was just a guest on Forbidden Knowledge News with Chris Matthew, and you can find that on my podcast update playlist on YouTube, or you can find it on Spreaker or wherever you like to listen to it. You just type in Forbidden Knowledge News, Raven Kiefer, and you'll see my appearance with him today. It was a really good conversation. And I also want to give him a shout out. I promised that I would, and I really like to help friends of mine. You can type in Forbidden Knowledge Occult Louisiana. That's Forbidden Knowledge Occult Louisiana. And that's his documentary that he's got out about weird things that go on in Louisiana, and it's free. So, there'll be
Right on.
advertising. There's advertising that he makes money off of, but you don't have to pay for it. So if you can help him out, that's great. Shout out to another good friend of mine, Ryder Lee, and one of my older friends, Jay Widener. They have released 2 documentaries in the last year. The first one is JFKX, Everything You Didn't Know About the JFK Assassination. And the new one is called A Clockwork Shining, the MK Ultra program in Kubrick movies. So Stanley Kubrick movies. And that has just got released. It just got released on Prime, Amazon Prime. And I think you can rent it for $1 or $2. I've been trying to get it to.
That was a guy that liked to hide some stuff in his
Oh
movies.
yeah, man. You got The Shining, you got Clockwork Orange, you got Eyes Wide Shut. So I'm giving Ryder Lee and Jay a shout out because their work is high quality. And the last ones that I want to give a shout out to is Truth Stream Media. That's Aaron and Melissa Dykes. Truth Stream Media, and I highly recommend The Minds of Men. I have the complete documentary in my playlist on YouTube, and they are fantastic documentarians. I followed them for a decade now. I don't do that with people that waste my time. And I like to give shout outs to people who are out there doing the real work. And I know you all may or may not listen to them, but at least I'm giving you some good sources to go to. And then Professor Hamamoto. If you have never heard of Professor Hamamoto, I met him a long time ago. And he has, I I put a new playlist up on my YouTube with videos that I am selectively putting in there, interviews and presentations that he's done. But you can go straight to his channel and check out anything that you want. But he's got an amazing array of information that goes with podcasts that I've done with Jonah and Patrick and a lot of other people, including Gladio. So all that being said, and I'm sorry to have taken up like 3 minutes of your time with that, but I want to send you all the people that I pay attention to.
No, we all appreciate that.
And then you got David Dubine at Adapt 2030, and you've got Diamond Dave over at the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, and then Rex Bear at the Leap Project. I'll try to give shout outs to people that I have respect for, yo.
Right.
That being said, now we want to get a little esoteric. So we're going to bring Scott back in here. He's been laughing at me giving all these promos for people.
The non-professional.
No, I tell you what, none of us are really professional. I said something the other day in one of my podcasts, the only difference, and maybe you and I were talking about this, but the only difference between me and somebody else is there are people who have been on the road for many, many years more than I am, and they're 100 miles ahead of me. And I have been on this road since I was a teenager, so I might be a few hundred miles ahead of whoever's just starting. But the thing about it is we never change. If you ever claim to be a master or a magi or whatever, then you have lost out because you're always an initiate. If you are not always seeking new knowledge, seeking new perspective, that's the important thing, perspective.
Yes.
Then you are lost.
Well, you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem at that point, because once you see, and this is the thing that and we've even talked about this in a previous podcast about how long you've been on the wave, how far you're willing to go into the wave, right? Because some of it, so just like with every action, like pulling over and helping somebody stranded on the side of the road. Now, whether it gives you goosebumps or not to do that, there is a high value vibration attached to that action. There's in fact, we were just talking about this before we started recording. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the miracles of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration. And he mentioned the numbers 369. Now we'll get back to the 369 because I think that's relevant too. But that again, so on the last podcast you were talking about the fractalization, the infinite downward fractalization, right? The spiral,
the Fibonacci. Yep.
The Fibonacci spiral down. And I said, well, we didn't say it at the podcast, but that's something I wanted to hit here. To me, that's the black hole that we're in. And how you create a downward spiral is you just take the gods that do everything, right? Create through thought, all this other stuff. Well, if you lower their vibration, right, and we mentioned this in the last podcast, your personal vibration, right? If everybody's vibration is really high, that helps raise out of the dark portal, so to speak. So that, because I think that goes hand in hand with how we actually got put in here as well. Because even you made the statement when he got thrown in, he took everybody with him, right? It wasn't like, this happened, that happened in a sequence. There were things that happened suddenly, just like we're going to have this flash. So I think it was a combination of things, just like you see play out here. How many people say it's a combination of, the vaccine mixed with 5G, mixed with the food you're eating. I mean, it's all been a giant combination. Now going back to the 369, something else we were talking about was, so the last one I was talking about the different times the gas giants pass through Taurus. Okay, and there's only 4 gas giants, and Jupiter is on this one, and this is the 4th window. So the other 3 windows of time, we've probably been through the same one more than once, changing the 3 different timelines, one for each of the 3 other gas giants that were there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get like Dolores Cannon talking about the 3 waves of volunteers. And I think that's exactly where that 369 comes from when he says, think about, energy and the wonders of the universe. I think it's 3 windows of times and 6 and then 9. If you do 3 times 3 is 9. I mean, to me, that just, I don't know. That's just something that
they're an interesting set of numbers, because 3 plus 6 is 9.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then you got 3 times 3 is 9.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people play with frequencies, 3, 6, 9, and I have
there
always thought,
there are some of that, but your 423 is a much finer frequency.
Yeah. Well,
and again, just like Nikola Tesla, everybody knows who he is. Dolores Cannon. A lot of people, if you know who these people are, and they're not everyday Joes that you've never heard of, there's a reason you've heard of them. So
yes,
they're part of the Matrix program. You get a little bit of truth out of them. Just like, I don't think he died when they said he died. I think that guy lived on. The way I understood it, he lived on in a damn hotel that he rigged free energy up in. One of his first setups, he gave a hotel free energy, and he lived there, and everybody in the hotel had free energy.
And the thing here we get into is like, the Matrix is what you brought up. The Matrix movie, there were characters within that movie that their only job was to present information, whether it be true or not. They weren't responsible for whether or not it was accurate. This is part of their programming.
Yes. Oh, and check this out. Okay. So because of the algorithms, we talk about the algorithms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we did. Were we recording this about the AI and the false? Okay, so check this out.
We'll get there, folks.
Yes, this is for the listeners, because the last week's podcast started with me somewhere in the beginning
about
saying,
AI.
Yeah, here's the thing about AI, and I never got back to it. So here's the thing about AI. So if you listen to last week's podcast, we talked about how if you look at people's free speech being taken away from them, if you fast forward, which would be behind us supposedly to the past, but fast forward from here, and you could see where bands wouldn't be allowed to sing vocals, and you end up with like a Mozart sitting at a piano not being able to say anything, but he's writing entire concerts, right? But those people don't exist. Those concerts didn't get played until later on. So the same thing about AI. Today, anybody can make a phone call and everybody will tell you your phone listens to you, it does this, it does that. Well, guess what? If you go in the backwards machine to like when we had phones that were on the wall, you had switchboard operators that had to place your call through. So you couldn't and listened, and so you couldn't dial anybody direct even then. And then if you go back further, supposedly to the telegraph days, Morse code, you didn't even send it. You wrote it down on a note and you slipped it to somebody, and you hope that they sent what you wrote on the paper. So AI has had all these supposed years, we'll just say, because I don't believe history the way we project it, but AI has had all these. So when all these different conversations through the course of what we know of as time, it is monitored. So when you have 2 AIs sitting down talking to each other, like you said, if they were true AI, they would process all that data, and they would give us probably 2 different answers based on their own thing, but they follow an algorithm, which is the programming, garbage in, garbage out. So it's not even a true AI setup. They're just we're the database that the AI draws off of every conversation, all our answers, they know, all our questions, all podcasts, they know,
text messages.
Yes.
So
they are getting, it's not that they're getting smarter, it's a perceived value, just like the dollar, just like a brick of gold. It's a perceived value of what they're trying to sell. Exactly.
Well, for me, what I had said when we were talking about this before recording is, okay, the AI is out there and it is soaking up everything. Let's just say that it could soak up 70% of everything that's being communicated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's written, if it's white papers for research, or if it's books, or I don't care. Let's just say it could actually soak up 70%. All right, that's great. If it actually could use 70% of everything that's out there, your and my conversations, Patrick and my conversations, Jonah and I, Chris and I today, if it could take everything that's available, 70% of it, and make its decision based on that 70%, then it would be legitimate. But with the
Yes.
algorithms in place to limit what it can respond, to limit the way that it can respond, and more importantly, to limit the access that it has to data, what you're getting is you're getting a narrative. You're getting part of
Yes.
the play.
You're getting
Um,
artificial intelligence.
that's it, because it's not actually
Because the big kicker of
accessing.
that is, dude, this is the big kicker. It's the micro and the macro, because
Hmm.
the artificial intelligence that they think is superior and all this is getting all their knowledge from all the artificially intelligent humans that are walking the planet.
Yes,
Because
there
right
is
now
nothing that
we are artificial intelligence as well.
yeah, there is nothing that any of these artificial intelligences could do if it was not garnering the data from real, whatever you want to, however you want to explain it, actual human beings' work. All it is doing is it's doing the same thing that I do, but at a much higher rate, higher processing rate. It's taking everything that it can find and it's correlating it, just like I do. Nothing
Yes.
different, just
Yes.
faster, and maybe access to a lot more data. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the data that it's using is accurate, and that's the other thing people aren't taking into consideration. If the AI was doing what it should be doing, then what it would do is it would give you an answer, and it would say, okay, one group says this. And then right at the bottom of it, it'd say, but Raven and Jay Widener and Ryder and Scott and Jonah and Chris and John and, let's just go through it.
Right.
It would list all of us say this. So here's your two presentations, and they would be
Yeah.
diametrically opposed because that's just the way it
See, and
is.
that's what I think too. It would actually give like a multiple choice answer, because there's so many different paradigms that exist between the people, right? Like you said, that you have a group over here that all say this, and then you have a whole group over here that say this. So it would probably graph it out. Your answer would be graphed
Yeah.
out
Well, and then
in
you have the group in the
multiple
middle.
answers.
You have the group in the middle that say the other two are full of shit. So I mean,
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's where I fall, y'all. I'm that one in the middle.
Yeah.
But
Well,
no, I mean,
and you kind of have to live there, because we've talked about this before too, and this goes right into this whole Putin thing that we were talking about. You know, on the very last podcast, I made the comment that, if you don't know the beginning, how can you see the end, right? That was
hmm
one that Maverick threw at me, and my opinion is the end is the birth, right? That whole thing about the Jupiter being birthed in Virgo, it has to do with a birth, right? So
hmm
what is the upcoming birth? Christmas. And I said that
hmm
chances are we're not going to get to Christmas. And it wasn't, but 3 or 4 days later, we had this little missile exchange happen. And I know we'll
hmm
talk about that whole ballistic missile package they're using. But what was Putin's answer? We'll have a response, and it'll be before, what do you say, Christmas. He could have said Thanksgiving. He could have picked. He's so, that's, to me, that's just, it may sound kind of funny, and even still, it sounds funny to say those things, but that's kind of just like more confirmation
hmm
that came out just like days after we had that conversation. And we
Well,
even talked on that podcast about how the inmates run the jail, right?
yeah.
And we laugh about it. And just today, we were talking about this before you were recording. Just today, Elon Musk posted that exact same quote that the inmates run the prison. And the first thing I thought of was, wow, I wonder if he's listening. Now, some of his AI probably is.
Yeah, I'm sure, because I post the stuff up there on and a lot of people don't realize it. If you post a link to X, there is a system in place that scans everything that you post there. So it may not actually listen to the podcast, but it does scan it. The same thing with YouTube. YouTube goes through with its whatever, its evaluation system, and it listens to every word.
Yep. And sometimes it'll go ahead and let a video post, and then an hour later say, "Oh, wait a minute, there's stuff in there. We got to copyright it and ban it."
Yeah, they do that too. Well, I'm torn about that. A lot of times I would say that copywriting materials it kind of sucks. My books are copyrighted. And there's a disclaimer in the front that if you need to use any of this, just contact me and get my approval. But you can't use it out of context.
Right. Well, the thing I find funny is what got me banned on that video was I was actually showing a clip, and it wasn't even a clip. I was playing the clip on one device while photographing it from another device. It wasn't even a true clip. It didn't have sound. It was, but that's all it was it was too much of a movie. If I went in and cut so much off of it and limited how much of that movie that I showed, then it posted it just fine. But I thought, how retarded is that? Because it's not even, I don't have the actual movie here to splice. I'm not doing this in a studio. It's a photograph, basically. It's a video of a video. I mean, come on, man.
But even like with my last podcast, I had to spell Henri the wrong way, just plain Henri, in order for the copyright to fit to hook. And I knew it when I did it. I mean, I've been doing this, 23 books in print since early 1990s. I know how the system works, but at the same time, it's a shame that you have to do that.
Right. Before we get too far in, based on the last podcast, something I had a vision of. Okay, so you were given your shout out to the operators of the snowplows out there, right?
Oh yes.
Okay. So, and this is funny because I don't remember. What was funny was because I right in the podcast you're saying we were talking about. I think putting yourself in a place or something. You said, about the snow plows, it's just all snow and white and when I lived in Colorado, I know what you're saying because there's places up there, like there's a pass called Wolf Creek Pass.
Oh yeah. Wolf Creek Pass is beautiful.
It is, right? But you can get 20 feet of snow piled up on that 2-lane winding blacktop. And that's all those snow plows have to use to keep their butts on the road is those green reflector stakes that they stick up on the edge of the road.
Yep.
That can be.
And if the snow gets higher than them reflectors, you're done.
Exactly. And that whole vision.
The same way.
Huh, Donovan? There's several. You got what? Yeah, Gunnison and Beaver Creek passes, and is it Beaver Creek? That's pretty treacherous. There's
from Salt Lake.
Yeah, there's quite a few of them back in there that, and those are the good ones. You can take. We used to do this back in the day. We had, because we lived in Colorado and we had mountains right there. You could go visit the old, what they called the old mining towns, and they're basically laid into the old wagon trails that are now converted into 4-wheel drive trails. But let me tell you, some of those things are, they'll make you pucker. Let me me tell you, because it's a road if you want to call it a road, but it's just, and if you're in a stiff 4-wheel drive and you're bouncing over this thing, which is fine. Yeah, it might shake the crap out of you, but if it scoots too far to the right, you're looking at about 1,000-foot drop.
Well, it's like 2-lane going down to Farmington. That's a spooky little road too.
Yeah, there's
Still,
a lot of them. There's a lot.
but you
Well,
know,
have you ever been up to Mount Evans?
yeah,
Right
that's pretty up
outside
there
of
too.
Denver.
Yeah, that's
That's
just upside.
above tree line, narrow
Hmm.
road. Yeah, that's always fun. But
Well, you know, I used to
I was
guide. I used to
listening to that
guide.
podcast today, and I remember you saying it's like, yeah, it did take me back to up there around Aspen. That used to blow my
Yeah,
mind, all the snow they get up
Aspen's
there.
gorgeous, and Wolf Creek Pass. I used to guide just on the other side of Wolf Creek Pass, where Chisholm used to live. The Lincoln County Wars were down there, y'all, for real.
Yeah, right
But I
on.
used to guide down there, and you know, we used to go out late, and those guys would wonder why I had a pair of snowshoes for everybody. Because you aren't going anywhere if you don't have snowshoes
If
for
you don't have
everybody.
them, exactly,
And
exactly.
you know, you try to teach them how to walk on them, you know, but you know, if you don't have these and it comes in, you're done.
Yes.
You know, they don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people
The,
didn't understand. You can go
there's a
out.
definite art to getting around in really deep snow, and you can get yourself in a big time mess really quick if you're not careful in deep snow.
Well, and the other thing too is a lot of people don't realize there could be a forecast of nice days, cold, bitter cold, dangerous cold. There could be no snow in the forecast for a week, and you get out there and you're out for 3 days and you get buried under 4 feet of snow. Um,
Yeah.
it changes that quick, and that's one of the
Hmm.
reasons why. That's one of the reasons why the outfit that I worked for had very specifically trained guides. You know, we had to have the
Yes.
cold weather and snow training. I got mine from the military or through the military, but
Oh,
hey,
and before I
Wainwright.
forget, check this out. Check this out. So before I forget, because we were talking about AI, right? So
Hmm.
the algorithm will send you stuff based on what you watch, right? Or what you
Yes,
talk.
it silos
Sometimes
you.
even
Yeah.
sometimes even what you talk about, right? So
Hmm.
check this out. This blows me away because you said a minute ago that that some of them they've got to put the stuff in the movies, right?
Yes.
So Star Trek, TOS, the original series. So there's all these you can get on YouTube and there's all these fan film versions where people are messing with CGI and creating their own little shorts
Hmm.
based on the olds. Well, one of them popped up, and it's called. Check this title out. It's called "Of God and Men." Okay, and
Curious.
the only reason I watched it was because it said that it had Nicole Nichols in it, and the guy that played Chekhov. I don't remember his name right off, and it also had I think Tuvok's character was in it, and I thought, wow, that's really weird that you've got actual Star Trek people in this. So I went ahead and watched it. Dude, check this out. Okay, so there is an episode where they go to a planet that has a strange energy. So I think it's the city on the edge of forever, where Dr. McCoy goes back in time and he saves the lady. What's I can't remember her name. She was really big in the 60s. Anyway, keeps her from getting hit by a truck and it ends up destroying their timeline and the Enterprise disappears, blah, blah, blah. So Kirk and Spock have to jump through this time portal at the approximate time that he did to go try to stop and fix whatever he undone. I don't know if you remember
Uh-huh.
that episode or not. Okay, so that device shows up in this movie of God and Men. And dude, this is crazy. So there's an episode where one of Kirk's best friends is like a navigator, a helmsman on the bridge, and he gets hit with some energy and he becomes godlike. Gary Mitchell, remember him?
Hmm.
And it's him and a nurse. They both become godlike, and their eyes get this really funny shine about them, and da 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 da. Okay, there's another episode where they take this kid. I think his name was Kevin on board, and he's got mind powers where he could
Hmm.
control people's minds. And he took over the bridge, and they had to kick him off and take him back to wherever he came from. Dude, this is where it gets weird. So that Kevin guy shows up in this Gods of Men at the planet where that time machine is from on the edge of tomorrow, city on the edge of
Hmm.
forever. He goes back in time and kills Kirk's grandmother. so that Kirk's mom and Kirk can't be born.
Wow.
So as soon as the timeline is altered, Gary Mitchell never dies and stays and progresses into the God form that he was. And it had three distinct splits in their personal timeline. And I just, I'm looking at it, and I'm just like now we're talking 369 into three timelines. Okay, so if you look at the Hopi Rock, right, you've got the two lines that come off the box that we're in. If you grab that bottom, string where the three balls are, the three windows of time, and let's say the furthest one away from you, which is the future, which we call our past, has a knot right there. So you pull that window to the next one, into the window that we're in.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Instead of them pulling in evenly, they just collapse onto each other and then into this window. So I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with that, but there's something there about the three hops through time, those three time windows, the three different timelines that they showed in that movie, because that's the same damn story. It's just done differently. I don't know. I just had to throw that in there, with our esoteric crap, because we really wanted to do energy exchanges, right?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. But right, there's this movie that came out with Tom Cruise, and it's called Live, Die, Repeat.
Yes,
and it's another Groundhog Day thing where you have to get everything right, and you keep progressing if you get everything right. But in the end, it goes back, and it's the beginning. So even though he did everything right, and he got all the way back, all the way through to the end, when he got to the end, he realized it was just the beginning.
Yeah, well, okay, so since everything got destroyed, see, this is the funny thing about this, and it shows up in that Creed song. And it says life is just beginning, because it all got destroyed. Everything that the reality we once knew got destroyed.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I think Earth, there are certain things that are going to go back to the way they were. I do believe that we have no control over, right?
Yeah.
But because I see, that's a part that's unknown, right? You just don't know. Is everything going to go back to a specific time the way it was, and all we're going to have is those memories of that time, and we won't remember this? Or are we just going to go, see, because coming backwards, we skip all the wars. They're still played out, but we skip all the wars. The only wars that were really fought in this window is Iraq, Vietnam, and there's been a bunch of little ones, Serbia and the Falkland Islands. I mean, there's been a bunch of wars, right? But
honestly, it's one continuous.
Yeah, but it's the same parties, and it's the same parties just in different locations, right? So they're all extensions, just like we were talking, this supposed World War III that we're not going to have, but it's just a continuation of World War II, which World War II, based on the stories that they want to tell you and da-da-da-da-da, which is a continuation of World War I. And they have to be, because it all led up to, okay, so when you go to the Nostradamus, and I think I've talked about this before, where man turned on each other and destroyed the world, right? See, that's why we came in after the Civil War. The Civil War memory got painted in afterwards, because there wasn't anything at that point. That was the war, our Civil War. If this is the land of the gods, man, and he turned on each other and destroyed the earth, according to Nostradamus, that was the final war, or one of. So there wouldn't have been anything prior to that. Everything prior to that's just laid in memory off of the false timeline that was created. You see what I'm saying?
Well, and people talk about the orphan trains. Where did all these kids come from, and where were all the people in these
Yes,
cities?
the orphanages back in 1800, right? Though
Yeah.
that same time period. Well, where do you think we came from?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure they weren't orphanages. They were probably DNA labs.
Very possibly. They talk about growing kids out of cabbages. I mean, I realize that. I realize that
Pardon me. Yeah,
symbology.
Cabbage Patch Kids. Yeah, Cabbage Patch Kids. Yeah,
I
yeah.
realize that symbology, but still, the symbology is there.
Because
You
even
can
in the last
order your kid.
podcast, we were talking about clones, right? Adam
Hmm.
and Eve were clones, and they were as close as they were going to get to the original, but clones nonetheless. So
Hmm.
that makes perfect sense that you would have we call it an orphanage because that's the cover story, right?
Yes,
All the truth is hidden by a cover story. So
that's it.
that's the cover story. This building over here, yeah, let's call it an orphanage. They'll buy that. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying?
Well,
So
and
I don't know.
we will touch on this subject very, very quickly, and then we're just going to let it go. But for folks that haven't heard my other podcasts, the United States, England, and France launched rockets
Oh,
into
yes.
Russian territory. And as a
Okay.
result of that, the Russians used a intermediary ballistic missile, and they used conventional weapons at Mach 10, so everything underneath it would have been pulverized. But we're going to bring this up because it's a reversal. The United States Empire was last. The English
Mm-hmm.
Empire was last before that, and the French Empire was before
French.
the
Yep.
English. It's exact reverse of the timeline, and people need to pay attention to that. And then Scott
Yeah.
brought up, we were talking about Christmas and we were talking about the birthday and this and that and the other. And even though it's Saturnalia and it's the birth of Mithra and all kinds of Horus and everybody else, it's still the same story, just different names. And
Yes.
then, Putin comes back out and says, we will have a response before Christmas. Um,
Yeah. And,
uh,
and and that was just kind of like a confirmation of what we had just been talking about prior to that, correct? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, a week before. So that kind of covers that. Look, y'all, I'm going to say the same thing that I have said before, and this leads into our conversation about energy exchange. Okay, if
yes.
people, if they are going to use hyperbolic bombs, or if they're going to use nuclear weapons, or if they're going to use conventional rods of God, it makes no difference to you or me. Okay, and people have
Nope.
trouble. Have trouble hearing this, but look, I can't stop them from pushing a button. Neither can you, you folks who are listening to me. We can't stop them from being nihilists. They're going to be nihilists, and we want to be humanists. We want to serve humanity the right way. So
Yes.
our job is to invest our energy in our family, our friends, conversations. In my case, my podcasts, and especially my laugh podcasts, um, because I want to put out that good energy. Um,
Exactly.
Laughter is an energy in and of itself. Um,
Well, just even
it,
when you and I get together, it's
yeah,
very
and start
upbeat,
laughing.
very humorous. We're not sitting here beating any
For
doldrums.
hell no. I mean, I got better things to do than beat on a drum. If I was singing, we might talk. Or if we were at a powwow and people were dancing, I might. But that's a whole different
There you
energy there
go.
too. Um,
Well, that gets back to the whole there's a time and place for everything, right? And those
yeah,
drums, yeah, I'll make the time and place for those drums. And what I
yeah.
find funny is, and we talk about this, and this might even be a good way to lead into it. We've even talked about how if you sit there and broadcast, right, that bad
Hmm.
things are going to happen. Um, you potentially could be bringing those things into your life when you don't necessarily need to.
Exactly.
And I
If
see,
you wake up in the morning and you walk down your hallway and you spill your coffee and you stub your toe and you say, "Oh shit, this day is screwed." Guess what you just did to yourself?
yeah,
you know,
and not
I'm sorry. The
everybody's.
faces, the faces I make when I stub my toe, usually have the other people in the house laughing at me. So we start off laughing even though I stubbed my toe. Um,
Right.
I mean, and then I think about
Well,
it and I find
what's
it
so
funny
funny?
too.
Well, what's so funny? And it's not funny, but because we know how this works, right? So yes,
Hmm.
it's funny to me. You have these people broadcasting this global fear. There's so
Yes.
many of these prepper channels, and they're talking the same stuff we are, Russia, but they don't see the play like we do. They think, but that they probably live in this time. So you excuse all that, but at the same time, they're the ones that are
Feeding it.
always talking. Well, they're always talking about in their videos about how they're dealing, with this kind of respiratory cold, or they've got this going on in their
Oh yeah.
sinuses, or
Yeah.
there's just something out of balance with them, and it's more to do with the stuff that they're talking than anything.
It's the energy that they're putting out. It comes back. I'm the
Yes.
first one to say, Mahe and I favor nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent from your lives that are needed. I'm the first one to say that. I say it at the beginning of every one of my shows. But I'm also very, very quickly to say 7 times 7 times 7. Your ill intent and ill intentions be returned to you.
Yes.
If you want to send it out, I'll send it back to you multiplied. I got no problems with that. Because
Exactly.
this is what we were talking about. We were going to start talking about energy exchange, but those that harm would do 7 times 7 times 7. Your harm and your harmful intentions be returned to you. You have the right to do that.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
have the
Then that's
absolute
what free
right to
choice
do
is
that.
all about. Yeah, that's what free
But if
choice.
you
Go
choose
ahead.
to send out harmful intentions, then you choose to get it back multiplied, because you know what? There's a lot of people that send me harmful intentions, and I got no problems of amplifying it and sending it right back out around that field that I have to anybody who wants it. And as far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned, anybody who wants it is somebody who would do harm to me or those that I'm responsible for. So,
Yep.
and you say it that way. Anyone who harm would do 7 times 7 times 7, your harm be returned to you. And you are completely legitimate in doing that. And by doing that, you're just shucking it off your shoulders. It's no longer your problem.
Exactly.
There's another form of energy. Don't acknowledge it. You
Hmm.
know, all this stuff that's going on is on my periphery. I know about the intermediary missile. I know about the launches. I know about the speeches, and I know about the rhetoric and the propaganda that's all over the place. I do know this, but that's not my problem. My problem is making sure that my home, the people that I'm responsible for, get my good energy. And the
Yes.
people who listen to my laugh podcasts get my energy in a positive way. Now, don't get me wrong; some of it is pretty randy, but
And not only the people around your house, but the people you interact with when you're out in the
exactly,
matrix.
exactly. There's that energy exchange. You and I have talked about this before, and then we'll go on to what we were going to talk about. When Scott and I talk about, we walk into a room and we feel the energy change.
Hmm.
It's because we're not going to
Yeah.
buy it. You walk in there and everybody's tense and anxious and blah blah. No, I'm not doing it. I got better things.
Especially if the people are familiar with you and they know you're
Yeah,
not going to buy it. They'll
I walked
change as
in and
soon
I
as you walk in the room.
I
Yeah.
literally walked into a deal the other day where everybody was sitting there all serious, and I walked in and I looked at all of them and started laughing. That was it. The meeting changed immediately. I found it funny that they were all sitting there anxious and worried and weirded out. Like the old days of getting called into the principal's office. And I'm like, I'm going on 60 years old. I don't care. What are you going to
Yeah.
do to me that ain't been done before? Um,
Yeah, and it's everywhere. See, that there's a reason. Okay, there's a reason that things like on YouTube or even your TV, those things are called channels,
hmm
because because there's an old saying, and I don't even remember now, something about energy flows where your focus goes, or something like that, right?
hmm
So if you're focused on the channel, you're channeling your focus, your energy into, when we were talking about meditation a while back, um, my comment was the energies, the entities, whatever you want to call them, that live inside of us, we welcomed in at one point or another, and usually unknowingly through
hmm
channeling of energies. Part of what we've talked about before is the whole red shoe thing.
hmm
Um,
In the traditional sense,
Okay.
not in this warped sense that they've changed it to today.
Right, because in some cases it does involve what you would consider a child, and I don't mean children like what statistically done today.
Yeah.
Um, we'll just use the word virgin of age, right? So,
Hmm.
there's certain red shoes, and correct me if I'm wrong, that initially they were used. Okay, so let's put it this way: if you watch some of the old wild westerns, right, supposedly, you would have the guy who would take his son of age up to the local whorehouse to go be with an experienced woman, right?
Yes.
And that's how supposedly the good Western men lost their virginity were to good Western whorehouses, right?
Hmm.
Well, that's part of the whole red shoe energy takeoff right there.
Yes.
Um, Now
It's
some
a little
red
bit
shoe
twisted, but
work,
yes.
yeah. Well, and there's even a long story behind that. It is what it is, right? So, but
Hmm.
see, we've talked about how there's also red shoe work for um like broken people. And like you said, it
Broken
doesn't
people,
always
yeah.
involve. It doesn't always involve sex. But
No.
we had even talked about couples on the last podcast and about how you can learn to channel your energy towards each other,
Yes.
um, and and make that connection. And basically, what it boils down to is, and see, this is where sex and love and all this stuff has been so convoluted. Okay, if you have someone you genuinely love, when it comes to, like, say, the act of sex, the whole point is you don't wake up and say, gee, I'm horny, I need to get my rocks off, and you go stab your partner and you satisfy yourself.
Exactly.
um it's about giving them it going back to Rex Bear, be the change you want to see, right? It's
Yes.
about giving, it's about meeting their expectations of pleasure, because if you're busy meeting their expectations of pleasure, yours are going to be met automatically. That's just how that
That's,
works.
yep.
That's how that's how you give the gift of energy. That is how you bond. Is That's what love is. You're willing to do for that person right there. Sometimes more than you're willing to do for yourself.
Exactly.
Now
Exactly.
you don't do that all the time,
No.
because, well, and you can be, well, see, and that's the thing, is you can, because if both partners are at an
Or
equal,
cycling. Cycling.
that's exactly, you're just going to cycle it back and forth, and you will create, through your own cycling of energy back and forth, your own Toyota field within your relationship, within your
That's
home
it.
space.
That's it.
And
You know,
just like if your personal vibration is high, 5G, none of this stuff can mess with you.
no.
And that's straight across the board. I'm talking, okay, so how many people are talking about parasites in the body and in the food? Trust me, if your vibration is high enough, your body will rid itself of those parasites. It'll rid itself of cancer. It'll rid itself of whatever ails you.
Well, let's talk about investing energy and being sick. You have people who are hypochondriacs that are genuinely sick and will kill themselves and
Yes.
never actually have anything wrong with them.
And they're cycling it continually onto
Yep,
themselves, right?
that's it.
Yes.
Well, it goes back to, oh, today is a terrible day. Well,
I'm
you
sorry.
just screw. Oh, you're all right.
Yeah.
Today is a terrible day. You just screwed yourself. Oh, this day is all messed up.
Right.
You just screwed yourself. Everybody says, "How's your day going?" Fantastic, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And they just look at me like I have lost my mind. I'm in the middle of cleaning a mess that is just god awful, and I'm like, it's going fantastic, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And they're just like, you're cleaning up
That's
vomit
okay.
off the floor.
You know what I told a woman today at work? Dude, I don't know if this is going to be too inappropriate. It's you. It's not inappropriate for you. I just don't know about our listeners.
Okay, here's content
okay.
warning, y'all.
Yes. This is just for entertainment purposes only. Don't be offended. So I walked into work today, right? And automatically, we talked about this. The energy in the room changes, right? So there's this girl that's there.
I'm losing your audio. Hang on a minute.
And actually, there's a couple.
All right, hang on a second,
Scott. There's a guy. Somebody says, "How you doing today, Scott?" And I says, "Oh,
hold on a second. I lost you. I lost your audio, so I missed like the first couple of minutes of that. Let's try it again. You walked into work.
Okay, so I walked into work, and somebody's like, "How you doing, Scott?" And I'm like, "Oh, you know me. Any better, I'd be a sin." Because that's what I tell everybody. If I was any better, I'd be a sin, right? And the lady looks at me and she goes, "Why'd you have to ask him for that? We always know he says the same thing." I said, "Well, I'm consistent." And I whispered in her ear. This is what I whispered to her. I says, "Well," I says, "I could have said something like, I'm smoother than a fresh shaved pussy." and she just got all red in the face and started laughing. I said, "See, there you go. Don't mess with me. I'll twerk one in your ear for you."
Oh, dude.
But it's like I tell them, it just that's right. We just make people laugh. But humor. I don't care about gossip. I don't care about, because I understand the ways of energy. And the cool thing about it is like I said, we can just move that energy almost the world these days. The things are happening so fast right now in we call it the esoteric world, but just in the collapsing of timelines and the gap, because we've talked about this before too, right? Because we're gathering energy back on.
Okay, hang on a second. Your audio is busting up again.
Dispensed across these timelines. It didn't go nowhere. The energy we put out, that exists in the form of.
That is so weird, dude. Your audio is doing some weird stuff.
Maybe we try this. Let me just. All right, is that any better?
There you go. But yeah, you're right. None of the energy can leave. It's just being gathered back in again.
Right. Yeah, and as those timelines collapse, those energies are going to collapse onto themselves and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we were talking on the last podcast about the phasing that's happening. It's happening super quick now, dog. I mean, holy crap. It does. It amazes me because I can think something. Okay, so just like this whole bit that I've talked to you about with this whole last red shoe incident, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
That encounter happened within 24 hours of asking a question. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. The thing about it is like the traditional thing with red shoe is you're dealing with emotional issues, generally speaking.
Oh, definitely, yes.
It could be somebody who's died that just needs help sorting things out.
Yeah.
For the survivor needs help sorting things out. It could be somebody who's young trying to figure shit out.
Yeah.
The reason why the traditionals always had red shoes is because they could work within the community, and they were like a counselor and a mentor first.
Yes.
And then in some cases they became sexual surrogates. A really good example, and they don't like to talk about it, is some of the Plains tribes had red shoes that were married, had a wife, had kids. They would go out hunting with a hunting party, and they were the sexual surrogate if need be.
Yes.
So, they were obviously bisexual. And there's a reason for that. It just keeps things moving the way it's supposed to. And people completely.
See, there's a lot of, okay, so if you want to go with the Bible and the law of Christianity, right? Okay, and this whole thing about a marriage, okay, so to me, individuals don't get married. That's going to be one of those things that gets left behind in this realm of things. Marriage doesn't exist.
But bonds can.
That's where I'm getting
That's a
at.
completely
Okay.
different thing.
Yes. Okay. So when you engage sexually with a person, this is why they say till death do you part, because you okay. Now, having said this, it's not always an absolute, right? So
yeah, you can cut that string.
There you go. But typically, you will carry that energy. In fact, they're finding out now, which some of us have already known this, that you can handle a woman in such a way that you can leave your energetic imprint on her sexual organ. Okay.
Yes.
Just like water, you've seen and you understand how water, if you place an item in a petri dish filled full of water and pull that item out and freeze the water, the image of the item that was placed in the water will appear in the ice, right?
Yep.
Okay, and we're 90% water. Okay. So that's why some red shoe work, a lot, 90% of, like you said, 90% of red shoe work doesn't even involve sex, because it's just it's the energetic imprint just from a touch.
Yep.
Sometimes all you have to do is, yes,
conversation.
but sometimes, yes, because it's all a form of connection, because we are connected. Going back to the emptiness that we talked about in the last podcast, right? You're just not feeling that person next to you. In reality, you can feel the trees around you, you can feel the animals around you, they can feel you. Now, having said that, just like we have the ability to cut the cord here, and you, if you know how to handle your energy, you can also keep your energy from interacting with, okay, in the act of sex, let's say. You can withhold your energy, and I don't mean withhold your energy as far as your semen, right? You can withhold your energy onto you. This is how you handle a succubus, okay?
Yep.
You can you can withhold your energy onto you while they are getting theirs, because while they are getting theirs, it is simply self-driven. That's that's the person that wakes up in the morning and says, gee, I'm horny, I gotta find somebody to satisfy me. So that would be your succubus. So and you can handle them if you know what you're doing. You just know how to withhold your energy until she has released her succubant energy. And if you're familiar with feeling energy,
or his for that example, there are males that are energy suckers too.
Yes, probably more males than well, I don't know. I'd say it's got to be about 50-50, my guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing for the females too. Yes, you can now I do think it is harder for the females to withhold their energy. Because see, that's part of the whole act of sex. I can't say it's the whole act of sex in the first place, but in this particular realm, we don't have the healing powers of the earth rejuvenating us, right?
No.
So we draw our energy off of one another, and this is where I said in couples you can create your own toroidal field within yourselves,
and it encompasses your home space.
Yes, and so those that like I said, when you're with a succubus, you can withhold your energy to the point where they're not going to release all their energy because of the way they are.
Yeah, but they can. But you can make them cannibalize themselves.
Exactly. you can make them cannibalize, but and you'll understand when I say this, and I don't know if any of the listeners will understand, but you can, if you understand the flows of energy within an intimate contact like that, and you know when the succubus has kind of plateaued, let's say, you can then start injecting your energy into the succubus, and this is where, like we were talking before, there have been instances, and it doesn't happen all the time. You know, I can't say I've been with thousands of women, but as far as intimate acts of being with a woman, yeah, thousands of times, literally hundreds. I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. But there are those, huh?
Yeah, it's just life for some of us.
Yeah, yeah, but there are those moments when you're with certain women, and within the energy flow of the union of two of you, feel that tide turn of the change of energy and what they are releasing. And and I know people have experienced this, and I think this is all it is. When you've had sex and you're brought to tears by it, you've just released some energy. That's all it is.
Well, and the thing about it is too is if you come across somebody who's been in a bad relationship, they're broken, they're injured, and if you can cycle their energy through you positively and give it back to them, that's a huge healing factor right there. You're balancing.
Yeah, well,
their
that's what I'm saying. When you can sense the flow shifting, then you can take your energy at that point and just start building it back up, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, it's really hard to verbalize energy flow.
Exactly. Well, anybody who's had a really serious intimate partner, I mean, it could have been in high school when you were just learning. You feel that energy cycle, and it's a good thing. A lot of times it's just self-satisfaction for guys. I hate to admit that. The same thing for girls too. But the thing about it is,
it's mostly ego driven, quite honestly. Yeah.
When you're younger. But the thing about it is sometimes you just hit with somebody and you cycle this energy, and it's a good thing, and you're drawn to each other. Now, I got a really good example. I've got somebody that I know that we have the most amazing energy exchange, and we still do from a long distance away from each other. But we know that we cannot live in the same house without killing each other.
Right.
So I mean, it's not that we don't love each other. It's not that we don't care. And it's not that we couldn't have the most amazing fireworks, because we have. It's just that we know that we cannot maintain ourselves within the same space because we're just not that way.
Right.
What do they always? What was that song that they had way back? Something in fire. I'm trying to remember what.
Oh, that old Free song. Fire and water must have made you their daughter. Because I mean, yes, that's on my playlist. I was just listening to that earlier tonight.
Or you're the magnet and I'm the steel,
Yes, exactly, yes.
But
well, see, and that's the whole thing, because
then the steel becomes magnetized,
Well, see, and that's the whole thing about the whole concept of marriage. Because one, you're kind of taking individuals and lumping them into a sum part. You know what I'm saying? You're taking away people's, the whole concept of men and women get together. Again, it's free will.
Well, I got to say, I've had two fantastic marriages that were an equal exchange of energy. But the thing about it is you have to have two people who are actually individuals to begin with. If you are not a complete individual that can maintain your own energy in your own sphere, then you cannot get with somebody.
Well, see, and this gets back to, this gets back to what we were talking about on the other podcast about perception of love versus real love. It reminds me of that Pink Floyd song, One Slip. Was it love, or was it just the idea of being in love?
Yeah.
Okay, so because if you're programmed to think that somebody proves their love to you by doing XYZ, right? You know, somebody could love you from head to toe, through and through, but if you don't do XYZ according to their program, that's not what love is. You see
Yeah,
what I'm
that's true.
saying?
Yeah, well, and the other
So,
thing that you have too is, and maybe this is a good place to bring it up in this, because this is really esoteric about relationships. When you apply your expectations to someone else,
oh
then
my goodness.
you are unfairly restricting your relationship with them. Very good example. I've been married and I had an amazing wife. And most guys would say, well, I expect that she's never going to have sex with anybody but me. Or I expect that she's going to make my coffee, or I expect she's going to make my breakfast occasionally, not every day necessarily. I expect her to be here every night. When you put those expectations on somebody, you are exerting your will on another person. And I have never
Uh-huh.
once thought that. I have had an open relationship most of my life. Why? When I was married the first time, I was out of the country for 12, 18 months at a time. Do you think I'm going to
Yeah.
deny a 20-year-old woman the right to have sex?
Right.
Hell no. That would have been absolutely
Well,
cruel and
but that's
unkind.
part of it. See, but that's part of it. You have a given understanding. A lot of people view their relationships as possessions.
Well, and
That
that's the other thing. This
that
possession
girl
of
is
somebody.
mine. Yeah,
Yeah,
see, and that's not it at all. People, okay, so this is
if somebody gives themselves to you, that's one thing, but you don't own them,
right.
and it's
See,
not
and this is
permanent.
I think this is where, well, no, you're right. And because, and that's everything,
Hmm.
okay, people will tell you this all the time, right? Because everyone has heard this phrase that people are brought into your life for a reason, a
Yes.
season, or forever. Okay, everybody
Hmm.
knows that, but do you really understand what that means? What it's telling you is everything happens for a reason. Everything, not just that person, but everything. So people, places, and things is how I categorize things.
Yep.
People are always number one. Places and things are secondary because people can take you places, right?
Hmm.
But it's always people oriented. People being together will create the places and things within
Yes.
their little world. So
Well, and a
people are
lot of
always
times the
the
places and things are just a means to meet people.
yes, exactly, which is again the number one thing, right? So
That's it.
first on the list is people. So that's where, getting back into love. If you love somebody, especially in regards of like sex, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? So
Hmm.
it's not a possession game. It's about what is it that you cherish about that person, first of all.
Hmm.
Are you trying to fill a void in your life? Like you said, a lot of people get into relationships when they're broken themselves and they're looking for the
Hmm.
replacement part to fix them in that other person. And that gets back to that expectation thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
It just absolutely
Um,
doesn't, and that's the reason why you see so many broken people that have had 20-year relationships.
and
It's
think
because
about
it
this
never
when
got
you're
fixed.
right, and think about this when you're in high school, right? You know, this is the thing that's always killed me about perception, especially oh, excuse me, in regards to sex. Okay, if a guy is a weekender at the bar and is always home with a different lady, the men all gather around and he's a stud, right?
Yeah,
If the girls go out and the same role takes place, well, no, she's a slut.
yeah, I've talked about that in my podcasts.
Have you see?
Yeah.
And I don't care for the labeling. I don't
No.
care. I don't care for none of it because ultimately that's just all ego driven right there. Period.
Hmm.
All that stuff is
Well, and
ego
it and
driven.
it's an unfair. It goes back to that perception thing. Those perceptions have been created artificially.
Yes. Yes,
You know,
because there's nothing wrong with one night stands, yet they're perceived because they're again, sex is free will. I know lots of people who have had great relationships and known each other. I've known lots of women through my life that I have never
I've
had
never
sex
had
with.
sex with. Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
And
And
then I've had individuals that I have met. Now I've had sex with them once
yes.
and never saw them again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it wasn't even a planned
And
one night
there
stand. I
and
wasn't
there
looking.
and no, and there's nothing wrong with that. And see,
And it was an amazing connection.
and in
You know?
this reality, since see, this is the part that kills me too. When you're talking about, okay, just like sex. Okay, now we said sex can stay with you forever.
Mm-hmm.
It can if you allow it, and that connection can remain. But
Mm-hmm.
who cares? Because we're all connected anyway.
That's it.
See
That's
that?
it.
See that's So when they write up sex as a sin, right? Sex is not a sin. Sex heals. Sex can do a lot of amazing things. It can also destroy people too.
Absolutely. If you have
So
expectations or and the other thing too is I do have to say that I joke about it in one of my I had this you asked for it podcast, and they asked me about porn in relationships. It can be good or bad.
yes,
It can be an assistance if you're inexperienced and need to learn, but it can also be a detriment if you put those expectations on your partner.
yes,
So,
yes.
I mean, it's how you use it and how your perception of it is that makes it dangerous or beneficial.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because let's face it, we talk about this all the time about our separate paths, right?
hmm
Now our separate paths led us to each other, and we met and we have wonderful discussions. But sexually, that too is everybody's own separate path. And
exactly.
it doesn't matter who John or Jane Doe are seeing this. It's none of
None
that's
of my
up to
business.
John. Exactly, that's up to John and Jane Doe. You
Yeah.
know, if they understand the ramifications and they're consenting adults, I don't care if they want to do a whole room full of people. The more the merrier. That's a huge energy. See, that's the other thing too. Okay, now now I don't
The
promote
old ultra.
orgies, and I
Yeah.
and I don't condone them. But what people do not realize is if you attend a professional football game, you're attending an energetic orgy already, and you don't
Yes.
even know it.
Exactly. Or baseball or whatever
Or
races.
baseball, or see, or even going to a
And
concert. Now here,
even at a high school level, if you go to a
yes,
basketball game,
yes.
you're waiting in a pool of energy.
Hmm. So, the sexual act of energy exchange is just one form. It goes on all the time. You're
Exactly.
exchanging energy with the cashier at the local convenience store when you go do your gas. You're exchanging energy with anybody you meet on the street that you even look at, because
Yep.
the eyes are the windows to the soul. And I have mentioned this before, that you can walk into a room and your eyes will see every single detail of that room. It's just
Yep.
whether your conscious self, can recall what your eyes saw.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
And
there's
go
there's
ahead.
this there's this hypocrisy. People talk about, like we were talking about Kubrick, Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes.
They had that orgy, and it was a feeding session off of
Yes.
individuals. That's a whole different thing. That is a left hand ritual thing that is
Hmm.
dark, and it is basically being a room full of
It's the
succubi.
it's the inversion of an actual practicality.
Yeah, in the old days
You
they
see
would
what I'm
have this.
saying?
In the old days they would have the spring festival. They'd have the spring festival, and in a lot of places they would have an open sexual spring festival. And the reason
Yes.
was for people to exchange energies, to become more of a
Hmm.
bonded community. There was no
Hmm.
requirement for participation. Um,
No.
but
And it didn't, and like you said, sometimes it's just something as simple as a bunch of people giving each other massages,
yes,
because
oh, I couldn't think
massage
it was
is
sex.
another great. I know another. Well, that's another great form of energy
hmm
exchange, especially between couples. Is
Well, you think
just
about
simple massage.
the old ritual of washing somebody's feet.
Yes.
It wasn't a subservient thing. It was a respectful exchange of energy.
Yeah, well, because if you understand energy and chakras and the energy systems that run through your body, there's a reason that they do the feet.
Yeah, and they used to do it with briny water. You all think about that.
Yeah,
Well,
because
Scott,
everything is an energy
we have blown an
exchange.
hour and 15 minutes quickly.
Wow, that went quick. Holy crap.
Yeah, folks, we will get back together as soon as we are able. It looks like it's going to be over the weekends. Maybe, dude, I am off on Tuesday. Maybe we can figure out a way to do something Tuesday and get another
On
one out early
Tuesdays,
this
yeah.
week.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, I'm
because
off
I'm
this
off on
Tuesday
Tuesday.
anyway.
Yeah.
If not, then folks, it'll be next. It'll be next Sunday when we record again because he doesn't
Yeah,
work on Monday, and I don't mind staying up late.
yeah. Or like I said, we might be able to do something Tuesday. I got a day off on Tuesday with nothing planned.
I'll see. I'll
Because
see where I'm at.
my life right now, it's like said in the last podcast. I catch the headlines, I see what's going on in the world, but all I see anymore is the play. That's it.
Yep.
I
Theater.
don't see the war. I don't see the war drums. I don't see. I listen to what they're saying, and we talked about this too. Donald Trump said we're going back to the golden age, which is
Mm-hmm.
the future. We talked about
Yep. And
we're
the
in the
past.
Iron Age now. Yeah, in the past. So that's the future, right? So he's also
And
said that a vote for me in November means no more elections because we're not supposed to have them. We've had the whole BRICS thing that we talked about all these other countries, and seeing all that is see BRICS. Okay, now they put it up as a monetary thing, and they want to scare everybody with the fall of the petrodollar and China.
yeah, fear,
those,
energy.
those are just those are just peace agreements between those countries because those countries also represent planetary systems, just like this clump that we call the United States represents a planet.
Well, now something
Which
else to point out while we're doing this.
yes,
You're bringing this up, folks. The reason why we had this long energy discussion was because we wanted to share that aspect with you. But the other thing too is it's about where you put your energy.
yes,
If you're putting your energy into all this fear and anxiety and everything that they're trying theatrically to create for you, then your energy's not going where it should be. Which is,
because the worst.
home, family, friends.
Well, because here's the thing. Okay, just because I see it this way or you see it that way doesn't
Mhm.
mean we're
It's
taking
what
the
we see.
biggest guess. It's just what we see. I had somebody tell me the other day, if you knew the outcome of the Mike Tyson fight, how come you didn't go bet on it? And it's like, because the bet that I made was the ultimate bet. I bet the farm. I gave up everything that I had on this earth based on the knowledge of what I see coming down the road, period.
Hmm.
So an insignificant bet like Mike Tyson,
Wouldn't make any difference.
it's not about the money. That's part of the
Yeah, I know.
Stockholm system, right? We can't
Yep.
exist without really. You can't just do something and live, especially if
Well,
you don't got
the
to
irony
eat
is,
and you don't.
the irony is they're so addicted Stockholm syndrome with the money that they don't understand that's their enslavement. Just
Exactly.
the idea and
And
the
like I
energy
said,
that
that
they
whole thing
devote
with
to it.
yeah, well, and like I said, that whole BRICS thing, all it is a peace agreement between those planets to conduct trade. Now, how that
Yep.
looks in the future, I don't know. It could be something as simple as, hey, those guys over there know how to do this, and those guys over there know how to do that. Who
I saw
knows?
a
But
really neat exchange. I saw a really neat exchange. They exchanged potatoes and carrots for citrus. Straight up.
there you
No
go.
money, no
There you
nothing.
go.
They
Yeah,
just traded potatoes for citrus.
yeah. And
They
that
have
and
root
it's that and
vegetables.
it's that and it's that freaking simple.
Yep.
I could go right out here and like I said, in the last podcast we talked about, what's to keep you from throwing together some hemp and building and you don't even have to throw it together because we know how to work energy, time, space, all that stuff. So all you have to do is take the energy exists in the form of hemp and just turn it into a flying carpet. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, well, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, but that's the imagination part. So
Yep.
it is
Doc
what
Ram.
it is what it is. It's just
Doc Ram is a very curious individual. If you all have never heard of Doc Ram, It's Dr. Richard Allen Miller. You can find him on the Leak Project a lot.
Yes.
He says, old friend of mine, from 30 years ago. But Dr. M says that once you imagine it, it exists. It's something to
Yes.
think about. It's something to think about, you all. Once you imagine it, it exists.
That's why it's very, I'm not going to say it's very important, because it's not going to manifest in this realm because of the fractalization and just how this
Hmm.
is set up. But that's why it's so important, just to keep your, like we talked last week's podcast, we talked about being at work, but energetically we stay somewhere else. We stay
Hmm.
connected to source, whatever.
Yeah.
Because it only requires a certain amount of me, especially as fast as we are processing things these days. Even a third
Yes.
or a quarter or whatever I'm taking of me to work is still out processing the job at hand. It's getting quite out of hand, so to speak. But
I'm sorry.
but
When I
that's
gotta
the whole thing. Go ahead.
when I gotta listen to Metallica at 1.3, 1.4 to make it sound right, yeah, I'm processing quick.
Yes, and it's happening across the board,
And it's not just
and
us.
so your thoughts are very important, especially, and it's like we've said, you can have whatever thought you want, just run it in and out of your head, just whatever you do, don't back it up with a word
Hmm.
or an action towards that thought. Just kick it down the road and put a better thought in place,
Yep.
and then immediately act on it to reinforce it.
Yep.
Go hug your pet and love on an animal, or go, yeah, whatever. I don't even recommend kicking rocks down the road right now, because
Yeah.
that may even come back to get you.
I tell myself every day. I tell myself every day. I am favored. Nothing missing. Nothing broken. Nothing absent from my life that's needed. And
That's
that's how I
right.
start my day. And after I do that, what can be done to me at that point?
See, and the thing about it is, a lot of people, when I talk to people, again, it's all based on perception, right? But
Hmm.
some people will perceive you as arrogant.
Mm. Yeah, it's true. It's because they don't
But
understand. They
yeah,
get so
because
caught up in it
well, see,
that they
but
can.
I can back up everything that I say. Now, when we
Yep.
talk this esoteric stuff, I can only back it up when it materializes out of the mouth of a leader like Putin, right? I can sit
Hmm.
there and say for a year. In fact, I can go back to videos I did last year, and I was looking at last Christmas as
Hmm.
being the day, right? So it's a shot in the dark. I don't know how many of these stupid collapsing timelines we have to see repeat things. That's the thing that's making it so hard. Um, but at the same time, there's no such thing as coincidence. I don't believe in that. So when we talk about Christmas as being an end date potentially, and it's going to be shortened from then, and then Putin comes out 4 days later and says, "Yeah, we'll have it done before Christmas." To me, those two things go hand in hand. I can't argue with, because I try to debunk myself every single day, because it's that whole open mindedness, right?
You
I
know,
can't be so.
I'm of the attitude. I told people that Trump would win by a landslide. It was just
Mhm.
obvious. You just watch the theater. You know this. Well, how did you know? Well, you just watch the theater from a spectator seat. Don't participate. You'll see it. But at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time, I've said many times. Somebody said, in that one podcast I did on my own, I said, look, when is it going to happen? I don't know. How's it going to happen?
Don't know.
I really don't know. Is it going to happen?
I think
Yes.
I think it's
um,
how it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a flash. That's how I think
I
it's
do
going to
too.
happen.
In the twinkling of
Yeah.
an eye, the
There.
only way that that's going to happen is if something is flashing into your eyes.
Well, and even you said in the last podcast that they keep programming it out there about this big flash we're going to see in
Flashing's
the
coming.
sky.
Yep.
I
Yep. They
mean,
keep saying it.
they keep saying it, and back in the day when Sprint was Sprint still, my phone every time when I turned it on said Spark.
Yep. Yep.
You can go buy a car made by I don't remember who makes it, Toyota. It's a Spark. It's a little thing. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
it's in the language, it's in the programming, just like the programming of World War III that's been with us forever. This is just a short
yep.
term. They're throwing it in there, here and there now. Oh, there's going to be a flash in the sky. Okay,
Well, and
we
they just
know.
keep doing it. They just keep doing it. I mean, this World War III thing's been going on my whole life.
Oh, yes.
So
Dude, we
it's
were
like, how
ducking
are
under
you unfazed? Well, because I've heard this since I was a kid.
we were ducking under tables as school kids as part of
Yep,
our drills. Remember that?
yep, absolutely.
And you had to know where your fallout shelters were, and they ran us through the whole thing about
Oh yeah,
covering yourself with wet newspaper to keep the contaminants off of you. And
oh yeah,
yeah,
or
it's
wet
been
cloths.
fear
Yeah,
porn. Yeah, it's been fear porn since, like I said, since day one of our country, when you had George Washington and his three visions of America.
oh yeah. Well,
Well,
and I'll go back to
hello.
what I said. Everything says that it'll be in a twinkling of an eye, and the only way that eyes twinkle is if there's light shining into them.
Yes,
So, and then you look
yes,
at all the symbology and all the esoteric writings and even the exoteric writings, the ones that are out there for everybody to see. It says that
yes,
there will be a flash. And then they
yeah.
start showing you these things, and then all of a sudden they brought Ragnarok back out after having it buried since the 70s. Well, Ragnarok's
Oh, and
happened
his
four
name
times
his name
already.
was in the yes, well, his name was in the news the other day, and I don't remember in regards to what, but I because I just laughed when I saw it. Right? I mean, that's that's all you can do is laugh when you see these things now, because it's like it doesn't phase me anymore. I didn't think his name would be brought up again. See that?
Mm,
Okay, so here's something for you too. So the other thing that they were saying just this last week, they made it a point that has been part of the talking points on every damn news station, is we recently crossed the 1,000-day mark of the war in the Ukraine, right?
mm-hmm.
So to me, 1,000 days could also be 1,000 years. That could be
Yes.
that close of that particular cycle, that particular
Mm-hmm.
window frame.
Yeah.
Because I just watch those wordings, and like I said, I just see it and I go, huh, I wonder if that's what it means. That's all you can do. That's all you can do anymore. and
Well,
and
and
going
the
back to the whole energy thing real quick, because we were just talking about the
yeah.
eyes are the windows to the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all you little lovebirds out there. And this where energy, and this where energy is important too, because you said going back to high school, right? When you fall in love. Okay, so if you can remember that initial, that falling in love, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could stay up for hours. You didn't need sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You could go without eating,
Mm-hmm.
because your body is actually feeding off the extra energy that you're creating by raising your vibration. That's all you're
Yes.
doing. When you have that feeling and you're just so happy, and that is an incredibly high vibration right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go without sleep, you can go without whatever. And so for you intimate couples out there,
I still do occasionally.
yeah, sun
Did I
gazing
eat
is a huge
yesterday? No.
sun gazing is a huge thing, is it not?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
You got to do it early
Okay,
in the
it's
morning or late at night, though.
right. Okay, so if we are the light,
Hmm. Looking into somebody else's
um,
eyes.
sun gazing, exactly.
Hmm.
And you know the old expression, and I know people have heard this, oh, I could just get lost in her eyes, right? Or I could
Oh,
get
yeah.
lost in, then do
Julia,
it.
you are. I am the moon, and you are my sun.
Yes, do it. Get
Hmm.
lost in each other's eyes.
Yep.
Hold hands when you do it, because especially if you're holding both hands, like you're
Hmm.
completing a circuit.
That's it.
You could do the same thing with intertwined feet, because you have very powerful chakras at the base of your feet. We were just
Yep.
talking about washing feet, right?
Yep.
There's a whole lot of nerve endings that cover your whole body that run through your feet. You can entangle your feet together, you can entangle your hands together, get
Yeah,
lost
that's
in
the
each
reason. That's the
other's
reason why they
eyes.
always show lovers intertwined, y'all.
Yes. There is a very powerful energetic connection that can be made between two people when you're that close. I mean, we talk
Hmm.
all the time that we're connected from 1,200 miles away just through
That's it.
channeling our energy through this device. You and I are
Hmm.
connected. But when you're in physical contact with somebody, that is at a whole different
Whole
level.
different level. Yeah,
Whole
absolutely.
different level. Yeah. So,
Well,
but
folks,
anyway, God, we tried to end
We
it
gave
half
you
an
an
hour
hour and a
ago. We're
half.
still going.
We gave you an hour and
I'm
a half, and we'll
sorry.
give you some more as soon as we can.
As soon as we can.
Think about the energy that you invest. Are you going to invest it in the fear and the anxiety, or are you going to invest it at home with family, friends, and putting out positive energy? Those are your choices. Feed the egregore of fear and hate and division, or feed the egregore that is your own family, friends, community. That's the choice you have to make. I said earlier with Chris, it's between you choose between nihilism and humanism.
Yes.
And if you choose nihilism, that means annihilism at some point.
And there's just something about, like we keep saying, and Rex Bear makes it very known on his channel, be the change you want to see.
Absolutely.
If you're watching all the crap go on in the world and you just wish it to be different, it's okay to wish it to be different, pray it to be however you want it to be, because you're going to help manifest some of that into the next realm, as long as it's not part of the material. But as far as the emotional energy, that's where we get our power from, especially
Absolutely.
if you're an empath, you get your power, all your power from within. And so just even if you have to force the niceness on people, I mean, not, don't force it. You don't have to feed them. It is.
Sometimes it's fun to do it.
Well, I tell people, especially females, this doesn't work well with a male, but I've actually used this line before, that it's going to be very hard for you to speak with my tongue down your throat. It's very hard. It's very hard for people to get a cross word in when you're busy planting a big wet one on their lips.
Exactly.
That's my approach. But anyhow,
the other thing that you have too is sometimes people want to do nasty and dirty behind your back, and what you do is you do kindness and generosity right in front of everybody, and the energy is immediate. Their karma is immediate. You don't have to do anything to them. Just be yourself.
And I was unaware of this because I don't keep track of these things. Like, I guess Thanksgiving's coming up right around the corner, so everybody's going to be with family, and we know how getting with family goes. Just be the light. Just be the light. Trust me. Especially right now in this day and age, you're going to take on energy that you never felt before.
Exactly.
It's going to be awesome.
Too, folks, is if you go to your Thanksgiving and it's a rough day, don't expect a rough day. Start your day like I do. I'm favored. This is gonna be a good day. And if there's people dumping shit all over you all day, go home and take a nice shower, nice soak in the tub, and then a shower, and just wash that stuff away and let it go. It's not something to drag around with you.
Yep.
Scott.
All right, brother. I love you, man. As always, man. It is, man. I love you.
Mahe and Favour, everybody. We will be back as soon as we can.
Happy holidays. Be safe in your travels.